Wait for it. Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blaze podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans, a Stabby chaos coordinator, and one chief shenanigator, geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Mr. Tony Sarrecchia, introduce himself. And I probably should ask how to pronounce that. And I'm guessing I pronounced it wrong, but we're going to just nod and pretend it's because of my hearing loss and go from there.
He laughed, so it's
no, it's all good. Tony Sarrecchia, you are correct. I am a right. It's close. You didn't say sriracha, so that's cool. That's what I normally get is Tony Sarrecchia. I am a writer of many things, of audio drama, prose, and screen. I have things in some various point of production in all of them right now.
Nice. Is it just because you couldn't commit to just one, so you had to go
pretty
everywhere?
much? I have a really hard time with commitment, so I go through to all of them.
You've got like your genre fluid. You've got product ADD. Is that what's going on?
I'm all over the board. Well, sometimes I think, like, when I sit down to write something, it's like, well, would this? I almost always start as an audio drama, and I'm not really sure why. I think it's because I think dialogue is king. So almost everything starts as an audio drama, but then normally, I don't know, probably by the time I get through the first 30 pages of it or so, it's like, oh, I really need a narration here that would fit the story better, or this really needs to be more visual. So then I'll go from there. But almost everything in my life starts out as an audio drama.
Nice. What makes you like audio dramas as your preferred avenue of approach?
Because I think, and every English professor I ever had is going to get mad right now, I think dialogue is king, right? I mean, we talk about subtext and themes and all that, but dialogue is what's going to move my story forward. And I love dialogue. I am a Aaron Sorkin fan from way back, and clever dialogue. The Bullwinkle cartoons had such clever dialogue that appealed to me as a child, that I think that I just carried that dialogue forward. So I still am heavy dialogue. I actually wrote a screenplay for someone, and he was my contact, and I wrote it with him. And then when we pitched it to the producer said to me, "You really are spot on with dialogue." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." And he said, "Why is there so much of it in the third act?" Because third act shouldn't have any dialogue in film. So, or at least I was like, okay, that's fair. But I just think that dialogue is where we need to be.
Okay. All right. So before we get too deep into this, we do have to ask you the religion questions. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Shoot.
Well, we don't want to shoot you. We like you, but Star Wars.
No.
Or
it's
Firefly.
just that.
Right.
Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly.
Wow. So this is a tough one, because I grew up on Star Trek TOS, but Star Wars, seeing it in the theater when it first came out, A New Hope, was almost a religious experience. And then Firefly is so subversive in what it does that, I mean, I guess I'd have to go with Star Wars of the three of those.
Okay.
There. Now, see, I committed. I can't commit. I have a hard time with commitment. I'm going to go back and forth on this the whole episode.
That's okay.
This cool. Okay. I mean, you thought it out. We can appreciate that. All right.
And we are allowed to change our minds, so.
Right.
It is
right.
kind of maturity, which is why I never change my mind. And because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blaze podcast, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia.
Game of Thrones.
Okay. You like the Grimdark, or is there something else?
I like the Grimdark. I like the Chronicles of Narnia. I mean, I guess at this point is pretty YA. I've never really read Wheel of Time, so I can't make an intelligent or have an intelligent discussion about that. But I do enjoy the grim darkness of Game of Thrones. I don't enjoy 30 pages describing a tree, but I do enjoy the rest of it.
I mean, I like 30 pages describing a tree, but my editors don't.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I
That's
guess if I'm writing the
JR.
30
We don't
pages,
care about the tree, JR.
right. Right.
At a certain point,
Right.
unless the tree is going to come to life and eat our heroes, I don't care about the tree no more.
Right, exactly.
See how unreasonable my editor is? Jeez.
Yeah.
I'm like that.
I'm with you. I mean, I as a reader, I don't want to read 30 pages about the tree. As a writer, I need 60 pages for the tree. So I understand both sides of it.
The duality of man right there is what I'm saying.
Right, exactly.
All right, so one of the crying shames of adulthood is we do stop asking each other the important questions. So thanks to the generosity of our sponsors, we are bringing that back. I'm going to ask you, sir, what is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, wow. I think it was the Stegosaurus, right? He's the one with the shields on his back.
Yep.
Right.
You were like
Yes,
our
that's the
sixth Stegosaurus in the last several interviews. I am amazed that has become the dinosaur
dinosaur of choice.
of all the people. Dinosaur of choice. There we go. November's dinosaur of choice is the Stegosaurus.
Yes.
So
Or the
if we're gonna do like a dinosaur zodiac for the November birthdays, we're gonna have to do
there
the
we go.
Oh, there you
Stegosaurus, I
go.
guess,
There you go. Nice.
because the people have spoken.
Right. Right.
Okay. Yeah, I was always into dinosaurs. So at one point in time, I thought I'd be a paleontologist until I realized it wasn't as exciting as like, Jurassic Park or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's the problem. It's when you actually look at the syllabus, you're like, oh, no, this sucks. Give me something else.
And then the really disappointing thing as you're growing up is realizing there's no one behind you with a band and a soundtrack for all the cool moments. You just get that overlay.
No theme music. No. Yeah.
No theme. I need theme music. Exactly.
Right?
So sad.
Or nobody following you at least with a boom. See, I'm gonna show my age. Nobody running around behind you with the boom box holding it up so you could have the music.
Right. Yeah.
A boom box is a thing that plays music, people. It's an old radio. A big one.
For you youngins.
We're all old enough for that.
Right. I mean, I guess you could sort of use your phone now to be the.
But you don't get the effect of like holding a phone up that you got
right,
from
yeah.
the boom box.
It's true.
Right.
And you can't do like the mixtapes like you used to back in the day because you can't. It's hard to record that from the radio.
Right. Right. Well, I guess you can make a
days.
playlist, like a Spotify playlist or something.
But that just doesn't have the same effect because it takes
doesn't, does it? Because it's like it's so because you're not. You know what it is? You don't have to wait for hours for that one song to come on.
Right.
Put it on that point of the tape. It's just picking this. You're really not earning it. Forget that. Forget a playlist. It's not even close to a mixtape.
Yeah, you had to work for it. And then if you missed it or you got interrupted by some breaking news, that was the worst.
Oh,
right.
Yes. Well, and the people who talked
or the DJ talked over the entire introduction.
Yeah. It's a pain.
Oh yeah, or they cut the outro riff because they decided it wasn't important.
Right.
No, every note on that song was important, you jackass.
Right. That's why it's going on my tape.
Exactly. This girl needs the exact right version. Come on.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
We are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast.
That's right. We are.
We are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. So, coffee or tea, take it.
Oh wow. Well, I guess I have coffee every day, so I'm going to go with coffee.
That's an excellent answer.
Preferably with French vanilla creamer.
That is the most excellent answer. That's exactly how I take mine. But
Awesome.
I noticed
There
for
you
a
go.
second when you said coffee, you had a little bit of New Jersey in you. So are you from up in the northeast?
Yeah, that is one of those words I've just never been able to get rid of. I am from the north. I am from New Jersey. I grew up in northeast New Jersey, not too far from Newark.
Okay, I went to grad school in Philly, so we used to.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're one of those guys. Okay, no.
Yeah, we crossed that the Ben Franklin Bridge, and you end up in. I want to say, is it Newark or New? It starts with an N. There's all the concerts venues there.
Eastern stuff.
Yeah, I think there was Newark had a bunch of them. I'm trying to think of what other N town there was out there.
Yeah, it's whatever one's right next to Philly across the water, and I just remember.
Oh, across the water from Philly would be oh my God, they're gonna pull my New Jersey card for this. I can't remember what it was.
I remember we went across the water one time to go visit somebody I served in the Army with to go to his wedding, and I felt like every 10 miles there was another toll booth, which was shocking. I think I paid more tolls in the day I was there than I had my entire life to date.
I think you're. Yeah, I mean, it's
Every
easier to
10
just.
miles.
I'm just gonna write you a check and leave it at the toll booth, and you just fill it out when I leave the state.
Right.
It
This
would
is
be much
before
easier.
everyone had like the Easy Pass thing where you could just
Yes.
like you actually had to carry the change.
Right.
And,
yeah.
you
And
had
throw it in the little
to be
bucket.
right. You had to plan ahead.
Yes.
And if you
Yep.
didn't, then you got the ticket, which was even more expensive, and you had to go in
Right.
person. It was just
Not only did you get the ticket, so like if the ticket was like $25 and the toll was 25 cents, you got a ticket for $25 and 25 cents. They wanted to let you know you were still paying for the toll. I may have had a couple of those tickets.
yeah.
Ooh.
25 is a funny number. I actually made a bet when I was in high school. This is back when checks were a thing. For 25 cents, and he didn't want to give up the coin, so he wrote it on a check. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to cash it. And I took it to the bank, and it bounced. And I'm like, can you just not bounce it, but mark it bounced? And I'm going to
That's harsh.
And then we kept that. That was a running joke for years. The bounced quarter check.
That's awesome.
Kids these days never like the racing the check to the bank. That's something they'll never experience.
They'll never experience that, right?
Because now everything's just instantaneous. It's just gone from your bank account.
Right. Right.
Which is both a blessing and a curse, because like I said, you could float money sometimes if things got a little tight. But
right, if you had a couple days, sure.
Of course, it's also a crime if you got caught and you timed it wrong. So
that was called check kiting, and I think that became a
there you go.
crime. Yeah.
Don't do that, people. It's a crime.
Don't do that. We're not encouraging check kiting. No, we can't. You can't do it anymore anyway. But
no fraud. Right.
Okay.
We here at the Blasters and Blade podcast expect you to be responsible human beings, and if you're not, don't tell us about it until it's funny.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
And the statute of limitations have run out.
There you go.
Right. Exactly.
Love those statute of limitations.
Of course, back then I was an underemployed high school kid, so for me it was just theoretical. I knew about it. I wasn't doing it, and even if I was, I'm still sticking with that line.
Yep, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
All right. Since we mentioned in the pre-show that you were in the military, you were a veteran, and this is a veteran-run shindig. You served in the U.S. Air Force, so we asked the veterans that come on the show this question. But how do you think your time in the Air Force affects the way you tell stories?
Oh wow. I don't want to say my cynicism towards the way the government works probably works its way into every story because of my Air Force time, but I'm not entirely certain that's not why it works its way into my stories of all the time. I mean, I honestly had a very good time in the Air Force. I enjoyed it. I was not cut out to be like a career military, and I knew that by the time my 4 years was up, but I could understand why people did enjoy that. I mean, it was a job, especially the Air Force, really. It was just a job. So I think a lot of the things like I did in the Air Force probably were more akin towards like office work, right? I was electronic warfare system specialist. So really it was a techie nerd job that I did. So I think that really crosses over well into like corporate techie nerd stuff. But I still feel like any organization of that size, you have just the silliness of it. And I do point that out a lot in all of my work. Now, whether it comes from my corporate world, my military world, I can't tell you specifically, but it's there.
You could tell us, but then you'd have to kill us.
Right. I could tell you, but you're right. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to delineate the two because there are so many things that I see working at a Fortune 100 company that is just like what we did in the Air Force. It's the same process. Or if it's not the same process, I could see it, having evolved from that process in the military.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question or not.
It did.
Okay.
Do you ever draw on people you served with when you're writing and telling stories?
Oh yeah. Yeah, probably. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's ever one. It may start out as one, but I think it becomes an amalgamation of people at some point in that situation. But I think, yeah, usually I could say that a couple characters that I've written that I won't mention who have started out as characters that I knew in the military.
That's
Okay.
reasonable.
And even now, I mean, I still have friends who serve, and some of the characters who I write now are still based on some of those characters, and they can figure that out for themselves.
Names have been changed to protect the
Ooh.
innocent and not so innocent. I get it.
Yeah, pretty much.
However that
Mostly.
works.
Sort of.
So
Yeah.
that's how
Yeah.
it affects the way you tell stories and how you pull characters. Has it changed the way you engage with content as a consumer? Because obviously we're all lovers of the products. That's why we write them and tell the stories, right? Because we love them first. So as a reader, as a listener, as a player of the games, do you engage with it different post Air Force?
I do when it's an Air Force, like when I watch movies and there's an Air Force character in there, it's like, oh, that's the wrong uniform. They wouldn't have been wearing that uniform then. Or, I mean, I think it's more like nitpicky things than, that I pick out from the Air Force. Like, I don't know, like, I know generally what like the Army uniform looked like and the Marines, but I know for sure what the Air Force uniform looked like. And I know that, an officer would never have the circle, or he would have the circle, whichever one it is. Right. That I pick that out. As far as the tech, no, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I don't generally read a lot of military science fiction, although I read one earlier this year that was probably more based on the Navy, I think, but it was really good, and it captured the military, like just the military mind at all the different, like at the enlisted level, at the officer level, at the executive level. It captured all of those really well, and I was really impressed with it. And I talked to the author about it, and he said he'd been writing that book for like 15 years, and he had military readers read it, and they talked to him about the slang and all that. So unfortunately, I don't think I've ever been able to capture the military as well as he has.
Okay. So with you're telling stories and you start with audio, but you're not old enough to remember the fireside dramas and the radio talkie programs where everyone gathered around during the Great Depression. So what makes that appeal?
No, not quite that old, but I was old enough that when I was growing up, in the so this would have probably been the early 70s, I think. I was living in New Jersey, and it was a stormy, rainy night, and we caught the AM radio, or I think it was an AM radio that I had on, caught a skip from Canada, and Canada was the Canadian radio station was playing the CBS Radio Theater, and I guess it was something. Because it was already, out of, they weren't still producing it in the 70s. They basically were doing it all night long. And I listened to this probably for 6 hours that night. And then I went, then the next day or whatever, I would go to the library and check out Johnny Dollar and The Shadow and The Whistler and all the audio drama stuff, or all the radio stuff. They didn't call it audio drama then, it was still radio drama, right? But I checked out all the radio drama, and I just thought it was so amazing. The stories, how you got caught into these stories without, just in your head. You weren't watching anything. You didn't have a whole lot of narration or description to go on, other than the voices and the sound effects, and, like in the case of Johnny Dollar and The Shadow, some of the narration. It just blew me away. I just thought, how are we not still doing this stuff?
So what was the impetus then that made you go from, I'm listening to this and I'm really, really loving it, to, I think I could do that myself? Because not all of us listen to that kind of thing and say, I think that I could write radio dramas, or that I could write any kind of audio drama. Mostly we just listen. And I'm with you on the old time radio. My husband is actually a huge fan, and he listens to it when we go to bed at night, and he's got this little pillow speaker, and occasionally the speaker will slide off his pillow,
Right.
and then a gunshot will go off, or that great calliope music, and it'll just levitate me right off the bed, because he's used to it, but I'm not, and something's banged, and here I am. But you're right, it's such a great thing. So how did you make that jump that said, I love this, therefore I'm going to do this?
So I've always written, although generally I was drawn more to film screenplays or stage plays than prose. I don't know why. I was just drawn in that direction. I think in high school, I think I memorized the 2-volume collection of Neil Simon's greatest plays. And
nice.
Neil Simon wrote The Odd Couple and a dozen other plays. And I loved theater. So when it came time to write Harry Strange, my first really major project, I started writing it as prose, but this was around 2007, 2008-ish, and podcasts were really just becoming a thing. And I had envisioned Harry as a 1940s noir private eye, but he was an immortal, right, basically. So he was doing a lot of the supernaturals that, his case was supernatural. And I was like, well, I bet this would work really well because and part of it was, the cheat factor was that I get to use narration, which, you usually don't want to narrate because that's generally not necessarily good writing, right? So I had to learn about, the proper use of narration, but it was so much quicker. Like I banged out the first season of Harry Strange in probably 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Whereas a novel would have taken me a considerably longer amount of time. And also at the time, like the barrier, the cost barrier of entry to radio or to podcasts is very, very low, considering when you put it up against especially in the late aughts, I guess, when you put it up against the cost of filming, right? We didn't have iPhones. You couldn't film something on your phone and make it legitimate, get legitimacy from it, but you could create a podcast and get legitimacy from that, get a legitimate audience. And that the drawback was once I, and it was a one-man show. I produced it, cast it, I did bring in someone to edit the sound because that was torturous for me. But it was still early enough in the podcast thing that, oh, you wrote a podcast? What's that? Right. So I had to define what a podcast was.
Right.
Oh, you mean like old time radio? Yes, like old time radio. So that was kind of my long answer to your question.
Oh, but that's a great long answer.
Cool. I'm glad. And so if I could, just one more quick story. When we did the first episode of Harry Strange, the sound designer and I, we had a party, right? We invited all the actors and their friends and spouses and such. And we had an old time radio set up and we played the first episode of Harry Strange for them on this old time radio. So people were all, like you said, JR, gathered around looking at the radio. And there's a scene in Harry Strange in the first episode where a character gets eviscerated. Now, the other nice thing about radio drama is it's a collaborative process, right? So you have actors, you have sound people. Yeah, it's a really cool process. So the actor who was getting eviscerated was so over the top in his, I guess as you would be, right, if you're getting eviscerated. And then the sound designer and I had spent literally weeks trying to figure out, well, what would a human being eviscerated sound like? And we ended up taking an orange and peeling it in front of a microphone. So thank you. So while that scene was going on, there was one woman there who put her hands in front of her eyes so she wouldn't have to see the evisceration. And I turned my sound designer. I said, man, that's actually really cool that, she thinks she's seeing something, but it's all going on in her head. And then when the scene ends with a gunshot and the person getting eviscerated is no longer, they're dead, we don't hear them anymore, and the literal sigh of relief in the room was incredible. And that was just like a 30-second scene, no real visuals other than what was going on in your brain. And it's the power of radio, I think.
So given that you're a fan of all the old-timey radios programs, obviously most of those I would say are probably all public domain right now.
Yeah, I think most of them are probably
good part of them
or at least parts of them. Are there any that you would, if you had unlimited time hack right now?
Oh yeah.
Because obviously like bills are a thing, family wants your time,
right,
kids want to eat, like we get it,
right.
But if you could dive into any of them and then start writing more content for them, which one would you stop everything to write in?
Have Gun Will Travel.
Oh, good choice. Good choice.
Yes.
What is it about that?
That was also a TV show in the early 60s, I guess, with Richard Boone as Paladin, and I think I love that show as I'm not really a Western guy now, but I loved that show, and I just think that show was it was like the blueprint for every PI show, every the lone hero, the lone guy against the establishment. I mean, I didn't know this when I was watching it when I was a child, but I mean, in retrospect, I think that was such a blueprint for every show in that type of genre that came later. So yeah, Have Gun Will. I actually went as far to reach out to I don't remember if it was Universal or someone who had the rights to it to find, because I had a production company that would be willing to produce it if I wrote it, if we could get the rights for it. And
wow.
I think they had told us that the whoever I spoke to at the time said, "Oh, we're going to do our own audio drama." That was like 10 years ago, and there's still no Have Gun Will Travel audio drama.
If I was going to do it, for me, it'd probably be The Adventures of the Rocketeer, or just The Rocketeer, which later.
Oh, The Rocketeer. Oh,
yeah,
it
became a CD thing, and then a movie in the late 90s, I think.
Yes. Yeah, that would have been a good one. Yeah, that would be good too.
And there was a comic in the 80s, dear listener, if you're familiar. But the aesthetic was just cool. It's kind of a steampunk vibe, which I really dug.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, that was really cool.
Did you have a favorite of all of them, Jana, since your husband forces you to listen to them?
We listen to them a lot when we're traveling, and I'm a big fan of The Shadow, and I like Dragnet. I would write episodes with either one of those, and it would be tremendously fun.
Yes, those were both
what
really
secrets
great.
lie within the heart of men. Yeah,
Yes, those are really great audio dramas as well.
Okay.
Yes, well, and Dragnet, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you look at like Law and Order, the original one, not any of the spinoffs, that would also be a great audio drama because there's no real visual component to that show when you watch it. Like you don't have to be watching Law and Order to follow along completely with it. And I think that's another great show that could lend itself to audio.
Yeah, and
that ties to the whole, when they did make Dragnet into television, it was the radio drama.
Right,
and so when you watch it, it's a very different pace than what we're expecting to see out of a cops and robbers kind of show.
Yeah, right.
Because it's got such narration to it, so much dialogue to it. So they're almost sometimes scrambling for what should the visual be here,
right?
Because it's already so well written in the description of the way the radio show works.
Right.
So that took some getting used to, because it was. Well, what do you mean they're not going to show this to us? They're just going to describe. And we went to the lady's house and we found this thing because this part is narrative.
Right.
And so it's a very different art form.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fun. And of course, there's the iconic, was it War of the Worlds that they thought was real and the
whole
world lost.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Orson Welles was just brilliant.
Did they really believe it, or is that post-event hype? Sometimes I wonder how much of that is after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll never really know, but I mean, there are like newspaper clippings and stuff that talk about it. But who? Again, Orson Welles was brilliant. This could have all been his marketing, and we'll never know now.
Yeah, but the movies that came later were good, and the story was good, so we forgive him.
We forgive him. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're gonna pause for a moment, dear listener, while we shamelessly chauffeur the man, and then we're gonna dive into the product that brought us here, the Skin Man cereal. But first, a word from our sponsor.
The government underestimated the outbreak. The best medicines couldn't stop it. Now, the dead are walking the streets, and they're hungry. Zombie Patient Zero is 9 tales of flesh-ripping, brain-splattering mayhem from Bayonet Books, the boldest name in action and horror anthologies. From deep space to luxury resorts, nowhere is safe. Zip up your hazmat suit and dare to find out how it all went wrong. Zombie Patient Zero, from the deranged minds that brought you Contact This and Storming Area 51. Pick up your copy today in paperback or Kindle.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. And with that, let us dive into the book that brought us here. Well, serial that brought us here. So first, where did the idea for the Skin Man come from?
So the idea for the Skin Man came from an open call, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, where they wanted like zombies versus something, and it didn't matter what the something was. So I had originally written a short story that became a novella called Everything Evolves, about zombies, basically zombies versus mud. The mud had become sentient, and through that story we find out that the mud became sentient because Mother Nature's had enough of us and it's time to clean up.
Okay.
Nice. So you were an early M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, I guess. I guess, yeah. So I actually gave that to my writers group and they liked it, and they were like, hey, we really like these characters. We really hate that you killed all of them. So is there any way that you could, this actually, the Skin Man actually takes place 15 years before that. That story's been redone. So that wasn't really a spoiler. So that story's been redone, but this one takes place kind of 15 years before that one, before Everything Evolves, and shows you kind of from two different timelines how things go bad. And it was, for me, it was a challenge because we start out with or I guess one of them starts out with a prologue that's from an unnamed narrator who kind of talks about how everything went bad. They were fighting in the streets. And it's like, every time I would write something, the real world would mimic that. So it was like, I have to keep coming up with crazier things to happen for this to seem like it makes sense.
That's always fun when the real world is just not strange enough that you can't keep ahead of it.
Yeah, right. It's like, this is not, you know what? I'm not even writing fiction anymore. It's too much. It was, so that's kind of where this came from. So then the Skin Man is the first entry into Everything Evolves.
Now, it is serial format because I've seen it on Ream, and then I'm seeing also on Amazon that you've got a book now. So is that collected of what has come out in the serial to a certain point? Or how
that will be? Yes.
I'm thinking about readers as to how do they find this and follow you and all those good things. Do they need to go to Ream first, or do they just hang on? So
they can go to Patreon.
Okay.
I could actually start out on my Substack and get the first 2 chapters there. Right now it's digital. I think when this episode is going to air, December 29th, we'll be pretty close to the end of part 1 by then. So then I'm going to release part 1 as a single unit on Amazon and the gang. So right now, though, we're in the process, it's just available through my Patreon as a single, as a bi-monthly. Okay, twice a month. I'm never sure what bi-monthly means, but twice a month entry.
So why serial? Because that's fascinating. Most of the authors we talk to, they have books that are coming out, novellas, novelettes, whatever. But I think Zorn and there's only been a few we've had where people have said, yes, I'm releasing this as serial. And most of the time they're doing lit RPG, things that have got kind of an established, serial run through things like Royal Road. So what drove you to say, I want to break this up and feed it to my readers in a serial format? Because that's a very different structure.
It is a very different structure, and really it was an experiment. It's an experiment. I was just trying, kind of a different way in, and also because there was going to be an audio component that goes with it. There's going to be kind of a dramatization. We just haven't done the dramatization bit of it yet. And that's the other thing is I'm trying to time, like, does the dramatization come after part 1 is out and then we just dramatize part 1? Or so there's a lot of that going in there. the serial part also came from, everything else that I've written has been serialized. All the audio dramas have been serialized. And I know Kindle tried the Vela platform for a bit, which was also kind of a serialized process, and people seem to dig it. So that's kind of what I was thinking when I released this as a serial. Now, I don't know that how successful it is just yet. We're not, people aren't, banging down their door. Yes, a serial, woohoo! And I don't know if that's because maybe serial novels don't hold the attraction anymore because we're so used to our streamers giving us all the episodes at once, right? And books giving us the whole thing at once. So this is honestly an experiment, and I'm not sure. Come when we get to the end of part 1, I'll reassess and decide if we're going to go serial or continue serial, or release part 2 as a novella, part 3 as a novella, 6 months later, and then put them all together as kind of an omnibus. Because we're right now, I think it's probably going to be about 120,000 words, which is kind of long for horror, not so long for sci-fi though. So I'm not, I'm not really sure which audience is going to be more drawn to this.
I think the problem with, generally speaking, the serial is that it got so expensive that it was like, by the time you bought it a chapter at a time, you could have bought 4 or 5 books is what got people.
Right.
It was the price that made it not viable. And of course, from the author perspective, because Amazon keeps such a large cut, in order for you to be viable, you end up overcharging for the format.
Right. And I think that was part of the problem with Kindle. There was also a lot of like weirdness with you had to buy tokens, but if you had extra tokens, you couldn't like sell them back. There was a lot of weirdness that went on with Kindle Vela, I thought. And then really the thing that sold the highest on Kindle Vela was romantic or adult romance, right? So there's no romance in any of my books. Sorry. I mean, it's just not my filter. I don't have that. So a lot of the other genres were like, well, we're not really getting any traction here. So and maybe I'll find out that I'm not getting any traction with this either. Like I said, I'm not afraid to try it though. So, and I have, there's a couple of people who've subscribed and they're coming along for the story, and yeah, the prices was a concern for me as well, because I labored over that really, really long. Like, so the entry level is $2 only because Patreon won't let you go less than $2. Right. So, and at $2, the author gets to keep, I think, $1.50 maybe, or $1.25 or something. So I did multi-tiers, right? So here's the $2 one. You can enter $2. You get 2 chapters a month. You'll get, background stuff and whatever. And then at the end of the whole thing, you'll get each, like, so when part 1 is out, you'll get all of part 1. And then I have a $10 tier where there's going to be, you get background information, and you get kind of like videos of how I wrote, what I was writing here. And we have a Discord page set up. So there's other options, but I think, at the end of it, if part 1 is probably going to be 8 chapters, so $4. No, wait, how does that work out? I completely lost my math now. So it's going to be...
Yeah, that's 4 months worth, so $8. So it's about $1 a chapter.
Yeah, so I think it's something like that. Yeah,
I went to public school.
Is what you're going to... Yeah, so you're getting 2 chapters a month. What's that?
So don't ask me. I went to public school.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I went to Catholic school. I can tell you the catechism of the Catholic Church, but I can't add, so I don't know. I can relate. So yeah, so that's the experiment, and I'll let you know how it goes when we're done in December.
Okay. So when you do the audio drama, is it generally like a tighter cast, or is it, because you tend to think audiobook is one person. Sometimes you get dual narration, and audio cast is like more than that, almost like one character, with sometimes with like instrumental or sound effects. What is the difference between an audio cast for an audiobook and a radio drama?
Well, you just want to start a war on the Facebook audio pages. So here is Tony's definition of it. When we do Skin Man as an audiobook, it's going to be multiple narrators. It's going to be a male narrator for the male POV chapters, female narrator for the female POV chapters. There will probably be some music and minimal effects. To me, that's kind of the rule for any audiobook. I like it when, we have multiple narrators, or, when we have the narrator in the same, the same as the POV character. An audio drama, yes, is generally, a full cast, full effects, full music. You can be more minimalistic, on the music and the effects, depending on your, what your budget is or what your time frame is. But the minimal, it needs to be a full cast. So no one really is doubling up on voices unless they're, guard number one and cab driver number one, and they have like one line each. That's just my philosophy. And then what was the third one you asked?
So if it's going to be first I knew we were going to do radio or audio for it. So I was trying to figure out what approach you were going to take when you did the audio.
Right.
It sounds like you're going to do multiple personages involved.
Correct.
Given that you have this through your funding venue is through the Patreon, what level of creative involvement, because authors take different approaches to this, do your patrons get when it comes? Because sometimes authors will be like, well, you can vote which one I kill next, or stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing that. Like, who should I kill next? What would you like to say? I mean, I am 85, 90,000 words into this, right? So the amount of control that the amount of input that the audience is going to have is going to be is going to be greater near the end than right now, just because there is a story that I want to tell. But there are some like one-off things where, should we kill the HR manager? Yes or no? Should he die horribly? Yes or no? Right. And I guess that's going to all depend on your feelings about HR. So there's going to be little polls like that when we get closer. I'm hesitant to do too many because I don't want there to be too many spoiler questions, right? Because, we know the HR manager is going to die. We just don't know how, if he's going to go peacefully in his sleep, or, I mean, probably not, but because it's something I've written, but
it's horror. So
yeah, it's horror. So it's horror. Be prepared for horror.
Well, first off, I'm from the South when it comes to getting rid of the HR, and he just needed killing as a valid defense. Just do with that what you may.
There's a whole chapter in here at the very beginning where it's, my beta readers were like, well, this is pretty funny. This kind of reads like, like The Office. You should write the whole thing in this style. And it's like, I can't, because that's not what the book's about. But so, yeah, and we do take a lot of liberties with the HR people and RTO and HR policies. So that's there. I'm with you. Just kill them.
So
knock them off.
You kind of get the premise, the techno horror, the vibe of the story itself, the sort of irreverence, which you can kind of expect from any Air Force office drone. I don't think any of them take themselves seriously, but I will say the Air Force is the branch that got it right. They send the officers to do the fighting and the dying, while the enlisted
yes, they do.
The Army, it's the exact opposite. Like the officers sit in the rear with the AC, and we go do the fighting and dying.
Right, that's crazy.
It's crazy.
Right.
But what can you tell us about the characters themselves?
So we have it's really an ensemble cast, and whoever you think is going to be the hero in the first 6 chapters, you're probably wrong.
Nice.
So because it's ensemble, I don't have to lean too heavily on anybody to do their thing. But I mean, we have 2 college students in the first chapter. We have a kid from Jersey who knows absolutely nothing about shooting or fighting or that, and he's basically taken under the wing by a southern woman, a southern student, and we watch his growth and her growth through the story. We have the corporate we have the corporate tech guys and gals who we follow a lot of their story, and their story is almost kind of the main thread of the Skin Man. We have the FEMA folks who are just as what you can imagine FEMA would be in an emergency of this nature. We have the corporate executives who are, again, pretty much kind of the Weasley, Gordon Gekko kind of, guys that, I'm not going to die, but I don't care if you die. And so those are kind
can
of
I
our
make
main...
a dime off of this?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, right. Yeah. How do I, and really that's kind of what our story becomes, right? Is like, yes, we're trying to stop the zombie apocalypse, but if we can make a buck out of this and sell it to another country, so much better. And that's kind of part of why things end up going as sideways as they do. We also have a snarky 15-year-old girl. We have an ex-wife she actually has a pretty cool, I think she has a pretty cool story arc. And we have kind of a Marine who's representing the military in all the best ways. And I'm not being snarky. He's like, this is what you want your military to be, is this guy.
Having had sisters growing up, when you said snarky 15-year-old girl, I was shocked. I said
shocked. Yes.
So
yes. Having had sisters and a daughter. Yes.
Okay. So are there any of them, like, obviously you've got all of these characters. Are you the only one writing? Because I know you've got other people involved in the process with the production side of the radio drama. Are you the only content?
No, I'm the only one writing this. Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
This is
okay.
For this. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So Skin Man is kind of my little project right now.
Does knowing who's involved on the back end when it comes to the post-production radio stuff, does knowing who those people are and who you're likely to go back to, because I'm assuming you work with the same people repeatedly?
I do. Generally, I have a handful of actors who I pick, and so there's two answers to that one. The first one is for the Skin Man. No, none of these people were written with specific actors in mind. But generally, if I'm writing an audio drama, I know the actors that I want to cast, and I know their strengths and their weaknesses. So I'll write specific bits for them, or specific characters for them. In Harry Strange, there was... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So that was my question, if you wrote with them in mind.
Yeah, so there's a villain in Harry Strange whose name is Mr. K. I think he shows up in like the 5th or 6th episode of the first season. And I wrote him specifically for an actor. Actually, he was barely an actor when I met him. But he had such a great... oh my God, his delivery on everything, just like speaking to him, was so nuanced, and his laugh was so infectious that it's like, oh, I have to write you into this, and you're going to be the supervillain for 3 seasons. So, and he just killed it. He knocked it out of the park.
I think that's what
it
everyone
works
wants
great
to hear.
when you do it that way.
I met you, and I thought you should be a supervillain. I mean, who doesn't want to hear that, really?
I mean,
right? I mean, there's worse things you can be.
There are worse things. Okay, so I have a question for you, kind of moving away from that just a little bit, but it still all ties back in. So we have a lot of listeners who have family, and we look at who we're going to give gifts to and that kind of thing. So about age range, where would you say the readership lies here? Not counting chickens like me, who I can't do zombie stuff. My brain is too active without help. But for those of us who are not chicken, about where would you say content and language wise, can we give this to our 16-year-olds, or should we make them wait till they're 20?
I mean, so there's no sex. There's no bad language, really. I mean, there's nothing that a 16-year-old won't hear at school in here. There's none of that, but there is a lot of body horror. Like, one of the things that the techs learn is that certain frequencies will deform a zombie. So there's a lot of that, a lot of body horror in here. And I mean, just, with zombies eating people, you're going to have kind of a body horror thing. So there's that. But I think that's kind of the most horrific stuff, is the body. I mean, to me it is, because there's some stuff I go, oh, what's living in your brain, Tone? But so I would say probably 16 would be about the youngest. But I mean, it's solidly an adult novel, but there's nothing in here that's really going to traumatize a 16-year-old, especially if they've watched, if they watched anything by Mike Flanagan.
So it's not as scary as television, but yeah.
Right.
Well, it could be scarier depending on their imagination.
That's also true.
It could be because, right, you're creating your own pictures in your head. Like, the lady was seeing the evisceration that we didn't show.
Yeah. Which does say a lot for what you can do with the right kinds of description and the right kinds of sound effects. That's what gets me.
Sound effects.
It's not the actual description that kills me. It's reading it, and then it's my brain going, let's take this and take it to the nth degree and paint pictures in your brain. And it's like, nope, and I'm done. I'm out.
Right. And and I think that's kind of the power of writing. Like Stephen King in Dance Macabre or one of his early technique books said something like, the whole time you're sitting in the theater, you're like, oh my God, don't let it be a 10-foot bug. Don't let it be a 10-foot bug. And then when you see it and it's a 10-foot bug, your brain immediately goes, oh, it's a 10-foot bug. God, but if it was a 100-foot bug, that would have really scared me. Well, when your brain is doing it without seeing the visual, it's going to be whatever petrifies you the most. Mm-hmm. And that's awesome.
So what is it about specifically the horror aspect of the genre that you're finding appealing? Because horror doesn't speak to everybody. It is not something everyone is drawn to.
Horror? No, they're not. And I completely like. There's certain horror that I'm not drawn to. I'm not a fan of the Terrifier movies, right? Or of that type of stuff. But I think horror shows us mostly that whatever it is, we can fight it and we can mostly win, but we're going to be changed by it, right? That winning comes at a cost generally. And I think that's kind of a cool lesson to learn, right? You can beat it. You can beat, I don't know, you can beat Pennywise, but it's gonna come at a cost.
Yeah, I think it's that old, you can stare into the abyss, but the abyss stares back.
Right. Line. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of part of it as well. And it's a thrill ride. I don't do roller coasters, but I'll read some horror.
Okay.
And do we pick up on some of that? When you're a lousy person, you're the one that the dinosaur eats first.
Right.
I was thinking that lawyer that gets
that lawyer.
Like, well, it kind of deserved it because he's a lousy person, which we see a lot in horror. A lot of horror is kind of that cautionary tale that says, when you're the one that is a terrible, terrible person, while innocent people may also die, we kind of celebrate when the ones that are terrible people get what's coming to them.
No.
Yeah. So with this one, with it being serial, do you have because you're doing it in a prolonged way that you're writing the story, do you have an end goal in mind when you start?
Yeah. No, this is it's a serial in delivery, but it's a novel in there's definitely an end to the Skin Man that hopefully will make you interested in the second book, but this story will wrap up. It's not going to be a cliffhanger and then the author abandons it or doesn't write the 7th book in the series or something.
There are some lit RPG serials over there on like Royal Road and Wattpad and all those types of things that when you add the number of words in chapters, they've been going for years or over 1 million words, and
right,
like there's some staying power in some of those, and so
yes.
I'm just not that dedicated to any problem.
And honestly, yeah. And as a writer, I'm not that dedicated either. I mean, I want this to end, right? I have 4 other projects on deck waiting for me to move on from Skin Man. So, but that being said, I want this to be, this is my zombie entry, and I want this to be, the best zombie story that you've ever read.
I think that's a great goal.
Yeah, that's my goal. I want you to have fun reading it.
Told by when we interviewed Ringo John Ringo that the success, well, you've been successful when you're writing zombies if the CDC calls you and asks you to tone it down.
Okay, that's cool. I mean,
there we go.
That is your new benchmark. Try to scare
that's
the
my
CDC.
new benchmark. It'll probably be FEMA, but yeah, I can.
He might have said FEMA. It's been a while, and I've got Swiss cheese for memory. So,
Yeah, because FEMA is kind of the point on all of this right now. So the CDC is there, but yeah, there's like everything else in the government. There's factions that are both trying to do the same thing that are competing against each other. So we even touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, that's one of the things that people forget about the post-apocalyptic sort of genres. Is there's just this infinite loot drop where the food never runs out. They're constantly finding canned goods, and the gas is always good. And like, no, gas will go bad eventually. The canned goods have shelf lives. The freezers sections, when you don't have power, will go bad and then spread mold, and
Really
eventually
fast.
that will like at a certain point in time, you're going to be running out of the prepared food, and you're going to have to hunt your own or grow your own. And then how do you farm and go agrarian in an age where vampires are roaming the land?
Right.
All the not vampires, zombies, excuse me.
Zombies.
And then are the zombies the soil that you want to grow the food in? And so like that's one of the things that no one ever takes into account is the food chain when you talk about zombies.
Right. So I sort of addressed that a little. Well, this is really, I think it's 2 years into the zombie apocalypse. But see, I also kind of have a more optimistic point of view is that, there's a lot of clever folks out there who will, there are still solar panels are still out there. There are still things that work. There's still ways to create spotlights without electricity. There's still college professors who aren't going to be eaten. So I think that my conceit is that I have all this, the main bits taking place at FEMA. So they have the generators, they have all, the things they're going to need. I think one of the bases is right next to a waterfall. So they have hydroelectric power running. So I think I tried to address some of those things. Now, some of it's just going to be, you just have to accept that this is what's happening. And if we continue into by the time we get to the third book, things are a little better zombie wise, but a lot worse survival wise. So that's kind of where I see us going.
Do you think you could survive in this world?
And would you want to?
No, I'm a big coward. No. And why would I want to? Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think so. Like our main guy for a bit is the techie guy, and he's really clever, and his thing is that I'm going to be the guy to save the world. I'm going to fix this, and not like in an Elon Musk sort of way, but like just this driven mad scientist thing, right? That he's going to be the hero. But I'm not that smart, so I don't know that I would want to. If my family and my dogs are still around, then yeah, I'm sticking around for them. But if that happens, no, I'm not going to mess with zombies, and I'll leave that to the youngins.
I'm just saying, I'll stick around as long as the coffee lasts, and then I'm walking out into this.
and then check out. Gotta go. Right.
Pretty much. Got to have your standards. You know what I mean?
Be like Woody Harrelson. I'm looking for that last Twinkie, man.
Oh, that's when I realized that movie where you realize what was in a Twinkie, and I haven't been able to eat one since that movie. And I'm like, you're telling me Twinkies and roaches can survive the nuclear apocalypse? Nope, I'm out.
That's the only thing that will. I think there's a lot more based on some of the research that I did. I think I found other things that will survive far longer than one would expect them to. MREs never go bad, right? You know that.
Yeah.
Because they start out horrible in the beginning, and then
there's nowhere for them to fall.
Right, they can't go anywhere. They're already at a baseline of 0. There's nothing else there.
Well, there's a guy who's got a YouTube channel, and I think he's just suicidal and has a death wish, but he's got a YouTube channel where he finds all these ancient MREs and he'll eat them on camera. He opened an MRE from 1840 something, and obviously they're not calling them MREs, but prepackaged military food from the 1840s, and he ate it and didn't die. So,
man, I don't like Pop-Tarts after a couple of weeks, much less an MRE. Right? And actually, I think Pop-Tarts is one of those foods that'll last forever.
Interesting.
Yes. But they don't taste real great. They'll last, but they're stale after a while.
I like Pop-Tarts, but unfortunately, by the time you eat enough of them to be full, you've destroyed your diet for a week. So for one meal, you've eaten a week's worth of calories. So I just can't do it.
I had a Pop-Tart recently. Yeah, because it's all it is. It's and it's all processed, fake sugar. But I had one recently, and I was really disappointed in how it tasted. I was like, my taste buds must have changed or something. And my wife said, no, they've always tasted like that. You just have the palate of a 12-year-old. So I was like, okay, well, that's probably fair.
Have you seen that
Or
movie?
they changed the recipe. Go ahead, Jer.
Have you seen that movie? Was it Freaky Friday, where they switched bodies? And the mom's eating her first French fry because she's in her daughter's body. You know, like I relate to that scene a lot more now than I did when I first watched it.
When you're young and we're young and could eat whatever you wanted. Yeah, I miss those days.
And then the daughter goes to grab one in the mom's body and says, no, that'll go straight to your stomach or whatever it was.
Straight to my thighs. Yeah.
Right. So, all right. So do you address like some of the problems in this universe that a post-apocalyptic world is going to have, or do you just lean into the interpersonal angle more?
It's more, this one's more interpersonal. Because to me, like I said up at the top, the story is always the dialogue, and the dialogue is because it's always about the people, and it's always, stories are, to me, it's always a character-driven story, right? It's like, what do these characters do in this situation? And there's going to probably be some stuff as we go into it, but right now, like the B story, which is the techie story, is taking place like almost immediately after the zombies arrive. And so they don't really have time the food supply is still fine. Everything is still good. The A story, it's 2 years later. And so they're having a little bit more of a difficult time, but they're kind of, they're hunting, they're basically on keto. They're just eating a lot of meat right now. And whatever else. But I don't spend a whole lot of time. Yeah. I don't spend a whole lot of time on that until it becomes relevant to the story.
Okay. Well, I don't have any more questions that won't go into spoiler territory, and why I don't care about that. Others will send me hate mail. So is there anything we haven't asked you about the Skin Man serial that you want to tell us before we wrap this up?
No, I think we got, without going into spoiler territory, I think we've pretty well hit on everything in the Skin Man. I think it's, I think you got everything. So I appreciate this time. Thank you very much.
Okay. And so this is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books. So do your part, people. It really does make a difference. And with that, where might we find you on the wild, wild interwebs, Tony?
So on the interwebs, I am Tony the Scribe on pretty much everything. So Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, Mastodon. I think I'm still on that. I am Tony Sarrecchia on Facebook, but I have a personal page and a professional page. If you find my personal page, I am not responsible for the amount of political things I post every day. I mean, I am responsible, but that's on you if you choose to follow that. If you don't want to follow the politics, you can follow my Tony Sarrecchia storyteller page, or you can find me at tonysarrecchia.com, which links to everything.
I don't care who you voted for, but I do have to know, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, you can stay.
Thank you.
Those are the important questions.
Right, it is. I agree.
All right.
I ducked that one by not eating pizza, so way.
What?
That sounds sad and depressing, Jana.
That does sound so sad.
All right, and the last question.
And you don't drink coffee either, right? I'm sorry.
No, she doesn't. Tony, the last question for you before we wrap this up, since you are from the New Jersey area, Pats or Geno's?
Say that again?
Pats or Geno's? How do you like your Philly cheesesteaks? Cheese whiz or real cheese?
Oh, no Cheese Whiz. No, absolutely not. I want real provolone cheese on my cheesesteaks.
Okay. Send the hate mail.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine. Send it to me. And it's Taylor ham, not pork roll. So there you go.
There you go.
If you're from Jersey, you'll get the argument.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is the part where I tell you that, Jana, eventually we will add you to our link tree. And people can find you that way. And that'll happen someday, but it is not today. So if we wanted to stalk you on the Wild Wild Interwebs, Jana, how might we do that?
Well, as I've told you before, I am the loser of Internet Hide and Go Seek. You can find me over at Linktree, linktr.ee/Opal Kingdom Press, or you can go directly to the press at www.Opal Kingdom Press, where myself and my multiple personalities hang out, or you can look for any of these pen names on all of the places, and if it is these pen names connected with publishing, it is 99.987% certain that it's me. So
99.987. So
97. Oddly precise.
The 87 is, there might be somebody out there masquerading as me, but why? Why would you want to do that? So it's probably me.
It's like when you call to get your bills and you got to pay and they want you to verify it to you. I'm like, no. If someone wants to call and pretend to be me to pay a bill, let them.
Just let them pay my bills. Yep. I agree. Yep.
All right. And you can find us, dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things of it, shoot the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters. We've got our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans from Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that is for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that brand coffee until they want more and have to buy more.
You can use the eyeballs one when we're doing a horror one. Go ahead.
Until it pours out of their eyeballs and we swim away on a river of caffeinated goodness. If you want some of that brand coffee, the link is in the show notes. The discount code is Podcast Grunts. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time. We'll indulge a level of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. All right. Thank you for coming on, Tony. This was a lot of fun. We'll have to have you back.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. With that,
thank you very much.